Today we'll be discussing ways to use natural light when we're taking pictures outdoors. We'll be exploring the differences in the direction and quality of light. As the sun travels across the sky, there are not only differences in the shape of the shadow, but also the intensity of the light. This is known as the quality of light. Quality of light refers to the brightness and how directly the light hits the subject. In direct sunlight, there is intense contrast between shadows and highlights. In shaded areas, the light is diffused and less direct, making shadows softer and less contrast between the highlights and shadows. The quality of light changes in predictable ways throughout the day. Just after sunrise and just before sunset, the light is much softer. At midday, the light is much more direct and harsh. Weather conditions can also influence the quality of light. Clouds will naturally diffuse and soften the sunlight. As we're outdoors taking pictures today, we'll learn about direct sunlight, full shade, open shade, and backlight. Each of these different lighting scenarios give the viewer a different impression of the subject. It's always important to consider the quality of light that your subject is best shown in. Make sure that the lighting fits with the message you're trying to send to the viewer. We'll be taking pictures today of Lauren, and we'll be watching the way that the light affects her face in each of the locations. Right now, we're in an area that has direct sunlight, and as you can see, the direct sunlight has created harsh shadows on her face, and there's intense contrast between the shadows and highlights. Generally, this type of lighting is not very flattering. There's so much contrast that it's difficult to see her eyes, and she's squinting so much that there are extra wrinkles in her face. Now we've moved to an area with open shade. We're just inside of a shaded area, but the sunlight is still very nearby, providing light that is warm and flattering. Most of the time when you're taking pictures of people, you want to find an area with softer light. Open shade is generally a great option. Since the light is softer, it's much easier to see the detail in the shadow areas, and the shape of the shadows is softer and more flattering. The softer light hides flaws and makes the skin appear smooth. In this photo, we can clearly see Lauren's eyes, which should always be the focal point of a portrait. Although the light in open shade is much more flattering than direct sunlight, there is one thing that we can do to make it even better. In shaded areas, there are often areas of the subject, like the side of Lauren's face, that are not very well lit. These areas can be filled in with light, and to do this, we'll use a reflector to bounce the light back onto the shadowed area. We'll position the reflector fairly close to Lauren with the sunlight falling directly onto it and bouncing back to her face. Now, I'm using a reflector stand today, but if you have an assistant, they can hold the reflector for you. The reflector did a great job of bringing light into the shadowed areas of her face. The light from the reflector is not harsh, but it still makes it easier to see the details in the shadow areas. Right now, the light in this location is great for our needs. However, at other times of the day, the light here will be direct sunlight. It's a good idea to scout a possible photography location to make sure that you're there when the lighting will be best to meet your needs. Generally, photographers like to work outdoors at specific times of day. Early mornings just after sunrise and evenings just before sunset are the times of day when the light is the softest and most desirable for photography. These times will have the best quality of light and allow for maximum detail in your photographs. Now we'll talk a little bit about backlight. Backlight is when there's a very strong light behind the subject and not enough light in front of the subject. This type of light will result in an unwanted silhouette, and all the detail in the subject's eyes and face will be lost. Also, backlighting can often cause lens flare. Lens flare is caused by light shining directly into the camera's lens, and it looks like bright circles of light in the photos. Now, there are a few ways that we can compensate for backlight. One of those ways is by using a flash. Light from a flash is often harsh and unflattering, much like direct sunlight, but commercial diffusers can help soften that light. Another way to compensate for a strong backlight is to adjust the exposure. Now, if the image is purposely overexposed, the shadowed areas will become visible and the highlights will become very bright. Any detail in the background may be lost, but the main subject will be properly exposed. To do this, we'll zoom in until Lauren's face fills the frame, and with her face filling the frame, we'll adjust the aperture and shutter speed until the light meter is balanced and indicates a proper exposure. With this new exposure setting, we'll now back up and recompose the shot, including all areas of the background that we want in the photo. The light meter will be indicating that we're overexposing the shot, but we'll ignore it. We know that we're only concerned with a portion of the image that will be properly exposed. Even though the background will be too bright, Lauren's face will be properly exposed. As you're out taking pictures, pay attention to the direction and quality of light. By using proper lighting techniques, you can make the subjects of your photographs appear more flattering, and you can greatly improve your image quality.